February 2012. A woman stands alone on a crimson circle, spotlights blazing, facing thousands. Her hands tremble, her voice wavers. For years, this exact moment had terrified her. And yet, Susan Cain stays and does something revolutionary. She stands before a room full of extroverts and tells them the world has been listening to the wrong voices all along. That 18-minute talk would be viewed over 40 million times, sparking what should call the quiet revolution, a global rethinking of who gets to be heard, valued, and believed. But Susan Cain's story did not begin with applause. It began in the soft margins of a Long Island childhood, where books were companions and solitude felt like home. It unfolded in classrooms where participation was prized over reflection, in Harvard law halls that rewarded boldness she did not naturally possess, in a legal career that looked successful on paper but felt misaligned on the inside. Slowly, almost reluctantly, Susan began to listen to the voice she had been taught to ignore. She left the law, she began to write, and through quiet, she gave language to millions who had been told explicitly or subtly to be louder, faster, more outgoing. Years later, with bittersweet, she went even further, making space for sorrow, longing, and melancholy in a world obsessed with relentless optimism. From a child who loved sad songs to the woman who taught the world that sensitivity is not weakness, Susan Cain didn't just publish books, she shifted culture. This is a story of how an introvert learned to speak, and in doing so, helped half the world finally feel seen. Born in 1968 as Susan Horowitz, she grew up on Long Island, New York, surrounded by the constant hum of suburban life, lawn mowers, car radios, busy schedules, endless motion. For a child as sensitive and inward-looking as Susan, the noise often felt overwhelming. Where others sought excitement, she sought refuge. Books became her sanctuary. By her teenage years, she had read thousands, so many that when applying to college, she worried admission officers wouldn't believe her. She compiled a list, not to impress, but to prove that her inner world was real. Her Jewish heritage quietly shaped her moral imagination. Stories of her grandfather, a Brooklyn rabbi who delivered deeply moving sermons for over 60 years despite his own reserved nature, taught Susan that depth didn't require volume and that wisdom could be gentle. From him, she absorbed empathy, reverence, and an attentiveness to life's emotional undercurrents. At home, her early years were marked by warmth, long afternoons spent talking with her mother, encouragement to read, a sense of being understood. But as adolescence arrived, that closeness fractured. What followed was a complicated mix of love, distance, and longing, a rupture that would leave lasting emotional echoes. One moment in particular stayed with her. At 9 years old, Susan arrived at summer camp dragging a suitcase heavy with books, imagining quiet conversations and shared stillness. Instead, she was met with roaring chants, relentless group activities, and a culture that prized constant enthusiasm. She felt profoundly out of place, not rebellious, not defiant, just unseen. These early experiences were not about resisting the world. They were about searching for space within it, and quietly, without anyone noticing, they planted the seeds for a life devoted to honoring the inner life. Susan's sharp intellect carried her to Princeton University, where she majored in English and graduated with honors. There, in the quiet architecture of literature, she flourished. Books rewarded depth. Thoughtfulness mattered. Silence was not a liability, but a strength. Harvard Law School was another world entirely, a pressure cooker of rapid-fire arguments, cold calls, and intellectual combat. It demanded not just brilliance, but dominance. For Susan, whose instincts leaned toward reflection rather than confrontation, each classroom felt like a performance under surveillance. Public speaking, especially, filled her with dread, a fear so persistent it would follow her well into her 40s. After graduation, she did what success prescribed. She joined a prestigious New York law firm, navigating the relentless pace of Wall Street, late nights, high stakes, negotiations, bold personalities, and unspoken rules that rewarded volume over nuance. She was excellent at the work, but inwardly, the cost was steep. Each day felt like putting on a version of herself that almost fit, but never quite did. By her 30s, the strain became impossible to ignore. Beneath the achievements and titles, a deeper question kept resurfacing. Why does the world so often mistake loudness for leadership? Living Law was not a sudden rebellion. It was the culmination of years of quiet reckoning. When she finally walked away, she wasn't abandoning success. She was choosing alignment, and in that choice, the path towards writing, advocacy, and a new definition of power began to take shape. Living Law meant stepping into uncertainty. No steady paycheck, no clear path, only one burning question. Why does a society that is at least 1/3 introverted act as if extroversion is the only way to succeed? Susan Cain dove into research with the intensity of someone who had finally found her life's work. For 7 years, she immersed herself in studies of personality and neuroscience, and, just as importantly, in the stories of people who had long felt invisible. Students, leaders, parents, workers, each story resonated, echoing the struggles she had carried since childhood, from summer camp to law school to the TED stage. She later described those years as pure bliss, the kind of deep, solitary work that only an introvert could fully appreciate. Her insights culminated in the 2012 release of Quiet, The Power of Introverts in a World That Can't Stop Talking. The book articulated a truth that readers had sensed but couldn't name. Introverts aren't broken extroverts. Their brains work differently. Their strengths are subtle but profound, and their impact can be enormous when given the right space. The book sold millions of copies, not because it was revolutionary in every fact, but because it gave people a language for experiences they had long felt alone in. The power of Susan's work went beyond research. It was personal. Her own life, her childhood, her struggles in law school, the exhaustion of corporate culture, and her terror of public speaking gave her authority and authenticity. And when she finally delivered her TED Talk, voice shaking in the spotlight, she demonstrated something far bigger than any book could. That vulnerability, paired with truth, is itself a form of strength. Tens of millions of people watched, and for many, it felt like a permission slip to embrace their own quiet power. Susan Cain didn't just explain introversion, she named it, celebrated it, and gave it a place in the world that often overlooked it. Quiet transcends mere pages. It's a blueprint for cultural change. Susan illuminates how introverts excel in focused creativity and empathetic listening. Yet sidelined in extrovert-centric schools and offices, she advocates redesigning spaces for balance, quieter classrooms for deep learning, open offices with retreat zones for recharge. Ultimately, she shows how introverts and extroverts complement each other, fostering richer collaborations. This message resonated globally, empowering overlooked students and professionals to claim their space. In 2015, she launched the Quiet Revolution, providing tools for educators, parents, and businesses, now reaching millions in over 40 languages and hailed by leaders worldwide. A decade later, Susan probed even deeper. Why do we have melancholic tunes on nostalgic ruins? Bittersweet, How Sorrow and Longing Make Us Whole, published in 2022. Drew from her raw experiences, the adolescent rift with her mother, the heartbreaking loss of her father during the pandemic, and a lifelong affinity for artists like Leonard Cohen. A classmate's teasing about her funeral music in law school lingered for 25 years, fueling her quest through psychology, art history, and brain science. She uncovered how this blend of joy and sorrow ignites creativity and human bonds, mirroring her own shift from law to authorship to raising her 2 sons with her extroverted husband, Kenneth, in their Hudson Valley home. Bittersweet honors the emotionally attuned, teaching that pain and longing aren't flaws, but catalysts for profound growth, compassion, and innovation. In a culture pushing relentless positivity, Susan warns against suppressing sorrow, urging us to embrace it through journaling, art, or shared stories for truer connections. This universality, from a poignant melody to life's impermanence, binds us all. The book topped the New York Times bestseller list and became Oprah's 99th book club selection, offering readers validation in their sensitivity as a hidden strength. Susan Cain's influence reaches far beyond the pages of her books. Her TED Talks, now viewed by tens of millions, continue to awaken leaders, educators, and quiet thinkers who once believed they had to change themselves to matter. What began as a single talk has grown into a living movement, the quiet revolution. That revolution now unfolds in classrooms where teachers rethink participation, in workplaces where managers redesign collaboration, and in homes where parents finally have language to defend their contemplative children. Online, the movement continues through communities that connect sensitive souls across the globe, offering a quiet reassurance: you are not alone and you are never broken. In recent years, Susan has deepened her work through The Quiet Life. Her Substack launched in 2023. She offers weekly reflections, gentle prompts for living thoughtfully in a loud, accelerated world. Readers are invited not to optimize themselves, but to listen inwardly. Aided by practices like her journal of 52 reflective exercises designed for the year ahead, her bittersweet audio course guides listeners through meditations on sorrows, longing, and beauty, transforming emotional wisdom into daily practice. And with Quiet at Work, she equips introverts to thrive professionally without abandoning who they are. The honors have followed: recognition from Harvard for Thought Leadership, Toastmasters International's Golden Gavel Award for Excellence in Communication, an almost poetic irony for someone who once feared public speaking, a global audience through LinkedIn, where millions engage with her ideas on personality, leadership, and the inner life. And yet, Susan Cain's true legacy cannot be tallied in awards, views, or book sales. Though those numbers are immense, her impact lives in quieter places, in the relief of people who stop apologizing for their temperament, in the permission to feel deeply in a culture addicted to cheerfulness, in the understanding that melancholy, sensitivity, and stillness are not obstacles to overcome, but qualities to cultivate. Today, she lives in the Hudson River Valley with her husband and 2 sons, embodying the life she has spent years articulating, one rooted in reflection, meaning, and chosen connection. Not performing, not persuading, simply living the truth she helped the world remember. Susan Cain didn't just start a conversation, she gave half the world permission to be itself. Susan's trajectory from a misfit girl to global changemaker proves that quiet introspection can unleash seismic shifts. Her teachings invite us to cherish our vulnerabilities, turning quiet corners and bittersweet aches into sources of unbreakable strength and shared humanity. Susan Cain didn't merely author books, she ignited a silent uprising, proving that in the cacophony of life, the softest whispers carry the farthest. Embrace your quiet, honor your sorrow, and watch your world transform. Dive into Quiet or Bittersweet, explore her Substack, or join her courses today. What's the quiet truth you've been holding back? Share in the comments. Let's amplify it together. Subscribe for more inspiring author tales, and remember, your voice, no matter how soft, matters.